Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye is back in Seoul following a state visit to Iran. South Korea secured economic deals worth tens of billions of dollars and diplomatic support for its North Korea policy. Warning Pyongyang against conducting another large-scale provocation, the United States reiterates that it will never accept a nuclear North Korea. First, Donald Trump delivers a knockout punch in Indiana. Ted Cruz calls it quits, leaving Trump the presumptive GOP nominee. Bernie Sanders beats Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's Wednesday, the 4th of May. You're tuned in to our noon newscast on Arirang TV. It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye is back in South Korea after wrapping up her state visit to Iran, sealing deal after deal during her stay. The two countries will now be able to explore boundless business opportunities with each other. President Park also helped win Iran's support for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, a diplomatic coup considering Tehran's long-standing ties with North Korea. Song Ji-son starts us off.
Korea's first state visit to Iran in 54 years was over and done within just 50 hours, but it could have hardly gone any better. President Park Geun-hye did not waste a single minute, taking step after step to upgrade bilateral relations in numerous fields. A staggering $37 billion worth of deals to upgrade Iran's infrastructure were signed under the comprehensive partnership agreed between Presidents Park and Rouhani. In their first joint statement, the two sides reaffirmed their commitment to a world free of nuclear weapons.
아울러 저는 한반도와 동북아 지역의 항구적 평화와 안정을 위한 열쇠는 한반도 평화 통일에 있음을 강조했으며 이란 측은 한반도 평화 통일을 위한 한국 국민의 열망에 대해 지지를 표명해 주었습니다.
Iran supports peace in the Korean Peninsula and is against any type of nuclear development. Our principle is that there should be no dangerous nuclear weapons in the Middle East or on the Korean Peninsula.
Just hours after her summit talks with Rouhani, President Park sat down with Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the country's highest figure in religion and politics. At the symbolic meeting as the first non-Muslim female leader to visit Iran, President Park and Khamenei shared a common view of developing bilateral relations. President Park also carried out her usual ritual while on an overseas trip. She attended a business forum to link Korean companies with local buyers, stressing the importance of the culture at an exchange event, and meeting with overseas Koreans to encourage them to build bridges between the two countries. Her last step before boarding the plane was a visit to Iran's National Museum to gain a deeper understanding of Persian culture and its legacy. With the Iran trip under her belt, President Park has completed a chain of visits to Turkey, Arab nations, and Iran during her term, reinforcing her diplomacy in the Middle East. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
So now that President Park's visit to Iran has wrapped up, much of the focus has shifted to the expected economic benefits it will bring Korea. The presidential office expects over $40 billion in new business opportunities will be developed thanks to the many MOUs inked during the trip. Kim Min-ji reports.
This sector expected to reap the biggest benefits from President Park Geun-hye's trip to Iran is construction. The aim is closer to winning the Isfahan-Avaz railway project worth $5.3 billion, which will establish a 541-kilometer-long inland railway. On top of that, a consortium led by Daewoo E&C and Hyundai E&C is nearing a deal on a $2 billion oil refinery construction project with Iran's Baman Jano company. Other Korean builders are also working to win orders for the construction of railways, airports, and energy facilities, thanks to the 59 economy-related MOUs that were agreed during the trip.
Iran is planning to establish a plant worth some $200 billion over the next 5 years. Korea is expected to benefit in energy and petrochemical sectors thanks to its outstanding technology.
This is another one of the follow-on achievements from the president's trip. SK Group says it will expand its global partnerships in the energy, ICT, and infrastructure sectors with Iran. After talks in Tehran, SK agreed to boost cooperation with the national Iranian oil company and Saipa, Iran's second-largest auto manufacturer. Hyundai Motor is also seeking to enter the Iranian market, while Kia Motors has resumed exports of parts to a state-run auto company. An MOU on maritime transport and port development is also expected to give Korea's shipbuilders a much-needed shot in the arm, as they have been suffering from eye-watering losses. Through these and other efforts, bilateral trade between Korea and Iran, which dropped to about $6 billion after international sanctions were imposed, is also expected to pick up to pre-sanctions levels within the next few years. The Korean government has also vowed to set up a $25 billion financing program for Korean companies working on infrastructure projects in Iran. However, as MOUs are not binding, the focus is now on whether they are fulfilled and, more importantly, to what degree, which is expected to become more apparent in the latter half of the year. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's major political parties are busy laying the groundwork for the lawmakers who will take office at the end of this month, including setting their leadership and policy agendas. The ruling Saenuri Party's new floor leader, Jung Jin-sok, spent his first day at work promoting collaboration with the opposition. Jung, as you can see there, sat down with the leaders of the Minju Party of Korea and the People's Party and discussed the direction of parliamentary affairs. Now, over at the main opposition Minju Party, the 6 candidates running to be the party's floor leader had a debate this morning, and the vote is set for this afternoon. We'll have the results later in the day for you. Lawmakers from the People's Party, the minor opposition party, including co-chair An Chol-soo, are meeting with people at small and mid-sized companies to hear their complaints and make strategies for some solutions. The United States has reiterated that it will never accept North Korea as a nuclear power, and it will increase its deterrence against the regime's provocations. Washington did, however, leave the door open to dialogue. Park Jong-hong has more.
Should North Korea increase its provocations, the U.S. will also raise the bar in its deterrence posture. This was one of the key remarks by Daniel Russell, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, speaking at a seminar at the Center for Strategic and International Studies.
We will not allow the threat from North Korea to grow without taking appropriate compensating and deterrent measures.
He was elaborating on his previous remarks that the U.S. is ready to take, quote, defense-related measures if Pyongyang conducts a 5th nuclear test. Russell also said the United States will never accept North Korea as a nuclear power. He added there's no change on the solid U.S. policy toward the North, stressing that Washington's top priority is protecting the country and its allies by way of denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. Russell did say, however, that North Korea has a path to prosperity and security, but that gateway is only through denuclearization and negotiation. Former Undersecretary of State Wendy Sherman, also at the seminar, said the U.S., South Korea, Japan, and China should begin to discuss potential contingencies, such as a regime collapse or a coup in North Korea. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
Newly released satellite imagery seems to suggest North Korea's recent submarine-launched ballistic missile test was a success. US-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North said images taken from North Korea's Shimpo shipyard show the missile was fired from a submarine rather than a submersible barge. The website said the missile was probably intended to be limited, focusing upon the submarine's launch systems, missile ignition sequence and initial guidance operations rather than a full operational test. It also said there are likely to be additional tests this year as North Korea develops experience and builds towards a full-range operational test. Sources within the South Korean government said last weekend that the April 23rd launch was a failure because the missile only travelled 30 kilometres. Over now to the US presidential primary in Indiana, and Donald Trump crushed the competition, all but sealing his path to the Republican nomination, especially after Texas Senator Ted Cruz dropped out. Ian Shin has more on the results.
They always say the next primary is pivotal, but the one in Indiana on Tuesday was more than that. It was a decisive one for the Republicans. After winning all 5 Northeast states last week, frontrunner Donald Trump claimed a huge win in Indiana. His victory virtually ensures he will become his party's nominee, especially after his main rival, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who announced he is ending his campaign.
From the beginning, I've said that I would continue on as long as there was a viable path to victory. Tonight, I'm sorry to say, it appears that path has been foreclosed.
Now that Senator Cruz is out of the picture, the Republican National Committee has joined Trump in saying he's the party's presumptive nominee. On the Democratic side, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders pulled out a victory over former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The win injects some energy into Sanders' sagging campaign, but it isn't enough to change the trajectory of the race. Clinton only needs about 200 more delegates to become the party's nominee, while Sanders, even with the additional pledged delegates from Tuesday, is far behind Clinton by at least 800 delegates. Even before all the votes were counted on Tuesday, the nation's attention had already started turning toward the general election in the fall. Just the day before, a national poll showed Trump leading Clinton 41% to 39% in a virtual matchup between the two. And considering back in March, the results were flipped in exactly the opposite way, it looks like the race will be roller coaster of a ride all the way up to Election Day in November. Ian Shin, Arirang News.
Now, there are growing concerns in South Korea that a Donald Trump victory in November could adversely affect Seoul's relations with the United States. The presumptive Republican nominee has expressed his desire to radically overhaul U.S. foreign policy. Kwon So-ah reports.
South Korea might have a different relationship with the United States with Donald Trump in the White House. Concerns started to rise when the Republican frontrunner began making comments on diplomatic matters that have a direct impact on Seoul. Trump has stated that South Korea should pay more for U.S. troops stationed on the Korean peninsula. He even said that South Korea should be allowed to acquire its own nuclear weapons, a view that runs contrary to the long-held U.S. policy of trying to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons. With Trump running on an America First approach, Trump's advisors have also suggested he would want to renegotiate the South Korea-U.S. free trade deal, as they believe the FTA doesn't benefit the U.S. Seoul's foreign ministry has said on numerous occasions that it's not going to be drawn into making predictions about the U.S. presidential race, but noted that it's closely monitoring each of the candidates' comments related to Korea. However, experts say that even if Trump does become president, it's unlikely his foreign policy shifts will become reality due to the strong fundamentals in Seoul-Washington ties. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's foreign exchange reserves rose for the second straight month in April. The Bank of Korea says the reserves swelled to around $372 billion as of the end of last month. That's up roughly $2.6 billion from March. The central bank attributes the increase to a rise in investment profits and the dollar-converted value of the strong Japanese yen and British pound. In April, the yen jumped 4% against the greenback, while the pound strengthened over 1.5%. Korea has the 7th largest foreign reserves in the world, following China, Japan and Switzerland, among others. The Korean government is working to boost domestic consumption over the upcoming long weekend. During a meeting with retailers, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said that from Thursday, it will operate a team solely focused on offering discounted deals to the public. Korea will also work to fuel domestic demand through toll gate exemptions and by offering free entry to museums and tourist hotspots. Retailers like department stores and supermarket chains said they're preparing big discount events to help the government restore some consumer confidence. Now, heavy rains and powerful winds swept across Korea yesterday and overnight, and while the rain has mostly stopped, the country is still being buffered by strong winds, which is pretty unusual for this time of the year. Korea's central region is seeing the strongest winds, with strong wind alerts in place, in actual fact, in Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, Chungcheongbuk-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces. Several flights were cancelled at Seoul's Gimpo International Airport and Jeju International Airport this morning due to the strong gusty winds. The Korea Airports Corporation says all flights should be running as scheduled by the afternoon. Well, those are stories we've been following on this Wednesday afternoon here in Seoul. If you are watching us in Korea, do have a nice long 4-day holiday weekend. And don't forget, for all the latest, you can check out our website, arirang.com/news, and our smartphone application. You can just search for Arirang TV in your app store. We'll be with you at the same time on Thursday and Friday, despite it being a weekend. So hopefully we'll see you then. If not, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.